Hi friends, welcome back. Today it's finally happened and I finished the painting. It isn't anything of what I thought it was going to be. I still do not remember what my original idea for this piece was, but I really love how it turned out. I tried some different things with the little critters that I did on there, which I will show you obviously, and yeah, I absolutely love it. It was a really fun one to work on, despite the frustration of not remembering what I was actually working on. But it was great fun. It is honestly really nice to have it done, and in a couple weeks we'll start something new. But for now, sit back, relax, and watch while I finish the painting. Well, when we left off, we had most of the background done, and I was working on all of these foreground rocks, which again, I'm basing them all out in acrylic gouache, and then adding the highlights, lowlights, and details with oil pastels. I actually really love doing rocks with just gouache, so it was kind of fun to play with doing them in a slightly different method by using the oil pastels. It does get tedious, but I mean, rocks just kind of get tedious in general. They're one of the things that, while they are really fun to paint, they can get to the point that you just feel like you've done the same thing over and over and over and over and over to the point that it's a bit mind-numbing. So I do try to not do an insane number of rocks, and I think originally when I started doing all the rocks on this painting, my intention was to have the entire foreground be full of them. But the more that I worked at it and the more that I was kind of stepping back and looking at it every couple of days, the more I felt like it was getting to be too busy with the number of rocks. And I had an idea in my head at this point of what I wanted to kind of really have the focal point of the foreground be, but I was a little worried that the rocks would end up kind of taking over and making it just a little bit too busy and too difficult to see what I really wanted for this painting. And I think normally I would have put in like some trees or some larger plants, and I'm really trying this year to let the backgrounds speak for themselves and not feel like I have to add trees to hide the things I don't like, but just let the parts of the painting that I might not be 100% happy with just exist, because again, the more that I look at them, the more I just think there's nothing wrong with it and it looks beautiful. It's just that I look at it with that artistic eye that just says it's not done, it's not done, it's not done. And there does come a point where you have to step back and let yourself be okay with how it looks right now. So that's been a big thing that has been ongoing throughout the years, honestly. But this year and last year, I'm really trying to focus on letting the background speak for itself and kind of have just a place of its own without me feeling the need to try to hide it behind other features that I may feel more confident with. So when I initially blocked out all the colors on this canvas, I don't know what I had in mind, as we've discussed multiple times at this point, but I had done this brighter green color, and at this point in painting it, I just wasn't happy with how vibrant that green was. I wanted something just a little bit more muted, a little cooler, and I felt like this green was it was too warm. So I decided to come in with kind of a mix of cooler bluey greens and just almost scrub it into the canvas to make it look a little more like watercolor plants, I guess would be the easiest way to put it. Because I didn't want to, again, because I'm trying to keep this from getting too busy, I didn't want to have to go in and paint every single plant detail. I wanted it to be something where your eye would kind of fill in the gaps and decide that there are plants here and there are plants here, and this shadow means there's a plant there, because I really like paintings like that. I think that they look really cool and really interesting, and it's also just, I really like this scrubbing technique on canvas. I think it turns out really beautiful and very kind of painterly. So it's one of the things that I really enjoy doing. So that was what I ended up with on this one, because at this point, honestly, this painting was starting to get a little bit frustrating. I was having fun with it, but after, I don't know, 3 different times of coming back to it and going, I just don't remember what my plan was for this painting, it had gotten to the point that it was just kind of stressful. I'm honestly so happy at this point that it's finished. I do really like how it turned out. I'm super happy with it, but I think I'm even more happy that it's finished and I can move on to something else. And I think my next one, I'm going to try to be a little more particular about finishing sections that make it easier for me to remember where I was going and what exactly I was planning on doing. Just because I don't ever want to be in this position again where it's not what I wanted it to be, because I don't remember what I wanted it to be. And again, a lot of that is just, pardon Jester, she's throwing a slight tantrum about being finished with her food for the evening. But part of it is that it's been just kind of a stressful few weeks, and I haven't had as much time to sit down and paint lately. So when I do have time, it almost makes it even more stressful if I don't immediately remember what I was working on or what I was wanting to do with this or where I was intending for this painting to go. So instead of this being like my great stress release like it usually is, it was somewhere in the middle. It was a little bit stressful because I would have to sit down and try to actually think about where I was going next and what I was doing next and where this painting was going. And at the same time, while I'm working at it, it is relieving stress and it is helping me to get my head right again. So this one was just kind of weird for me. Again, I am really happy with it. I do love how it turned out, but there is that part of me that is just even happier that it's done and I can put it away for a little while and start something new. I don't know what I'm going to start next, but it'll be something fun and we'll try to make it one where I can remember what I'm doing. Ay. So, again, my initial plan was to have this whole, well, not initial, but one of my plans that I do remember was to have this whole foreground be full of rocks. And at this point, after painting in that new grassy planty color, I have decided that it would just be too much to have this be completely full of rocks. So I'm kind of strategically placing rocks where I would like them. And I have plans, obviously, for what animals I want to be painting on this. That's one of the things that I will usually figure out pretty early and will kind of stick with. And that's one of the things that I do remember is that I wanted to have multiple animals. I don't think I had originally decided what animals I wanted, but while I was just looking at reference photos one evening, I picked out a couple that I thought would be really fun and would be really cute and would work well with the rocky theme in this one. So with that in mind, when I sat down to work on these rocks, I had a little bit better idea of how I wanted to place things, where I wanted to place things, what exactly I was looking for while I was putting these rocks in. And so that did make it a little bit easier to kind of make the decision of, this doesn't need to be full of rocks. You don't have to deal with the monotony of painting a billion more small rocks into this space. You can just do a few strategic rocks and then strategic planty shapes that will make it just seem a little more natural, a little bit more organic, and more like the setting that I was going for the animals that I intended to put on here. So again, I go in with the oil pastels. I just kind of smudge 3 or 4 different colors on each rock, and then I will go through with a little blender stick, blending stump, I think they're called, and smudge it into the shadows and the highlights to be kind of what I had in mind, basically. I know a lot of pastel artists prefer to use their finger. That is really hard on my hand with having cubital tunnel, so having the blending stump just makes it about 1,000,000 times easier on my hand. And because I am so used to holding a paintbrush or holding a pencil, it is much easier just in general to use the blending stump. If you've ever tried oil pastels and you don't like them because your hand gets really dirty, I would definitely recommend getting the stumps. And then you can just sand the oil pastel off the tip so that you can reuse them for whatever colors you want after you're done. They're super useful. I had them for ages. I think I had gotten them for charcoal sketching years ago and then gave that up pretty early on. So, but I really like how the oil pastels look for the rock texture. I think it just comes out really cool, and it gives it a little bit more depth than what I'm generally able to get with just gouache. And while I love how my rocks look with just gouache, I think just having the ability to play with a second medium is just, it's really fun. It adds a little bit of extra dimension, and I like it. I think it comes out really nice. So then, like I said, we're going to go in and add some planty shapes just to kind of ground all of the rocks into their places. I have already done this with all the rocks that are in the mid-ground at this point. I've added a bunch of little grasses. I added some more little leafy weeds, I guess you would call them, just to make it look a little bit more natural. I didn't want it to just be rock next to rock next to rock on top of green, because that's not really what it looks like when you have rocks on grass. The grass will grow in between them. So I had taken a lot of time to put little tiny blades of grass, which I recognize that you can't see super clearly in the video, but hoping you can kind of get the gist of the rocks kind of seeding themselves a little bit better into the ground as I'm adding these plant shapes. It's one of the things that it does take a little while to get used to how to add the plant shapes, where to add the plant shapes, kind of how many to put where to make it look natural without just completely covering up your rock, because your instinct is to just cover the whole front edge of your rock with grass. But then somehow a lot of the time it just doesn't look natural, and it looks like it was painted and not like this is a scene that you would see somewhere. It looks like something is incorrect. So it's one of the things that I try to be very mindful of, is how many blades of grass to draw and what colors to do them, where to put them, because I'll also put them in the middle of all of the green like painterly grass, I will add little blades of grass just to ground everything a little bit more. Most of the time you won't even notice them when you're looking at the painting. I notice them, obviously, but I think it's just one of those things that adds that little touch that your eye will notice, but your brain might not notice. So it'll help your eye to recognize that this is all grass without your brain necessarily going, oh, she put a blade of grass there. That must mean this is grass. So there's always just little things like that to think about when you're working on a painting like this. So I did spend an absolute ton of time just painting additional little blades of grass here and there and just really rooting and grounding everything into their particular spaces. And in the end, I really like how it all turned out. I will add a few more grassy planty shapes after I've added in the animals, just because I will want to ground them into the space as well. And now here we're starting on the animals. So the first one is a little badger, and I had found a reference photo of a badger with his paws up on this stump, and he was just like sniffing around on the stump, and it was just so cute. And I thought I could make that work where he's sitting up on a rock and kind of sniffing the rock. And my thought was to have it be a badger and obviously a fox having a little playtime. So in my head, the little badger is like counting to 10 because they're playing hide and seek in the rocks or something. So I have him with his little nosy down, and he's counting. And unfortunately, my camera battery did die while I was working on the fox, and I was on a roll, so I didn't feel like getting up and getting the new battery from the other room. So I'm not going to show you me painting the fox, but you will get to see most of the process on the badger. And honestly, I think the badger was probably more interesting anyway. The fox was a little bit of a pain. It was a position I hadn't ever painted before, and I did end up kind of having to cover a little bit of the figure with some plants, but I still think it came out really nice. Again, I'm trying to be a little bit more creative with my positioning for the animals that I'm painting, because I do tend to paint them into like the same 2 or 3, it's more like 6 or 7 different positions. I do a lot of like just straight on from the side, just because that is simpler, but I am expanding, I am growing, I am getting better at doing more dynamic postures. So that's been fun. It's been definitely much more challenging. I a lot of the time find that I can't actually wear my compression glove when I'm doing the little tiny details on the animals, just because the glove almost gets in the way of allowing my hand to do some of those really, really fine details. It's interesting. My hand is doing a lot better this year, so compression glove has been helping a lot. I've been doing a lot of good exercises. Yeah, it's one of those things that you learn to deal with, you do your exercises, and eventually it does get better. So painting will definitely be something that I will continue doing. It's one of the big reasons why I do make sure that I do all of my exercises and I wear my compression gloves and I take really good care of my hands, is because I want to be able to keep painting. I want to be able to keep doing stuff like this, because again, I love it. It's a big part of my life, honestly, and I don't want to have to give this up just because I'm hypermobile and don't always hold my arms in the right position. Like that's lame. We're not doing that. So here's the last tiny little section that you'll get to see of me painting, where I am just starting on the fox. And don't worry, I will show you the finished painting, but that's basically all that I'm going to show you for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you all for believing in me as I worked on this somewhat annoying painting. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I hope that you enjoyed it. And in just a few seconds here, you will get to see the finished painting that is not what it was supposed to be, but is definitely really, really cute and something that I am incredibly proud of. As you can see, much more dynamic posture for the fox. I feel like the fox is being super playful here. Really cute. I was trying to keep growing as an artist. Thank you guys for watching, and here is the full painting. Thanks, guys. Bye. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more chill videos with art.